evening. Good evening. My name is Willie Poinsett, and I'm one of the co-founders of Respond to Racism in Lake Oswego. These are my friends and collaborators, Linda Ganzini from the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, Emily Levens, Board Chair of LO for Love. On behalf of all of our groups, we'd like to thank you for attending tonight's City Council candidate forum, and we'd like to welcome our panel of candidates. We'd also like to welcome elected officials who are watching. As many of you may know, Respond to Racism was formed following a racist incident involving fellow community members that compelled us to sit down and talk about racism in our city. Our mission is to educate and empower Lake Oswego residents and institutions with the tools to combat racism in all its forms and make LO and Oregon a better place to live and visit for residents and visitors of all races and ethnicities. We hold monthly community meetings, protests, rallies, celebrations, and have committees working on programs, police reform, monitoring, city meetings, and engagement with our youth. We invite you to join us. And now my friend, Linda Ganzini.
Thank you, Willie. The Lake Oswego Sustainability Network was formed in 2013 with the purpose of promoting sustainable practices in Lake Oswego. Our long-term goal is to create a safe and healthy environment for ourselves and for future generations. We do this through this triple bottom line lens of the environment, social equity, and the economy. Our teams include a climate team focused on electrification, a natural resources team, a schools team, and a business and economic prosperity team. We work with partners throughout the city on projects to increase clean energy, clean water, clean air, to reduce waste, toxins, and climate emissions, to protect our urban forest, and more. We hope to help support residents, the city, and our schools chart a more inclusive and sustainable course for Lake Oswego. And now I will turn it over to Emily Levens from LO for Love.
Thank you, Linda. LO for Love was started by community members in 2016 after reports of racist and anti-Semitic actions by students at Lake Oswego High School, and amid the national climate emboldening acts of hate against many groups of people in our community. With the aim of uniting people to spread compassion and empathy, our group led a family-friendly march in downtown Lake Oswego. Over 300 people joined in the peaceful and positive show of love, empathy, and solidarity. Today, our group continues to advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion in Lake Oswego through our work and partnerships with the institutions that impact our everyday lives: schools, city government, and community. Our mission is to transform Lake Oswego into an inclusive community that dismantles racism, bigotry, and intolerance, advocates for social justice, and celebrates the diversity of all people. We invite you to join us. That brings us to why we're here tonight. Our organizations are hosting this forum because we want to play a role in helping voters make an informed decision about the future of this city that we all love. Lake Oswego has a lot of strengths as a community: good schools, neighborhoods, parks, and the heart and spirit of its people, to name a few. However, we do not have a great reputation when it comes to issues relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this reputation is perpetuated today. In addition, we've seen a lot of support for sustainability among our city leaders and residents, but we know that as citizens of the suburban area, we need to do much more to reduce climate emissions and the use of toxic materials so that we can pass along a safe environment for future generations. Willie?
We are all here tonight because we care deeply about this community. The City Council plays a key role in charting the course for our city. This includes fostering a welcoming and inclusive environment for all community members. There are 3 city council seats, and we'll all be voting to fill in the upcoming election. There are 6 candidates. The top 3 vote getters will win the 3 seats. We are very fortunate to have so many candidates who have a passion for making Lake Oswego a great place to live. We'd like to thank all of them for being here tonight and for being willing to step up and dedicate themselves to civic service. And now, back to Linda.
Thank you. Before we get started, a few quick announcements. We will take a 5-minute break midway through the forum. Tonight's forum is being recorded and will be available on YouTube within the next day or so. So please let your neighbors and friends know about it. The link to the recording will be on our websites. Okay, let's get started. We'd like to introduce our 4 esteemed student moderators for the evening. Ansley Kang, Jules Kennedy, Karuna Miller, and Hayden Seawright. With that, I'll pass the mic to our moderators who will briefly share the format for the evening and get us started.
Thank you, Willie, Linda, and Emily. My name is Karuna Miller, and I'm a senior at Lake Oswego High School.
My name is Jules. I'm a senior at Riverdale High School.
My name is Hayden Seawright, and I'm a senior at Riverdale High School.
My name is Ansley Kang, and I'm a sophomore at Lake Oswego High School.
So here's the agenda for tonight. When we begin, each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves and give their opening statement. We have provided each candidate with the order in which they will respond. After opening statements, we'll then ask the candidates questions. There will be varying response times ranging from 60 to 90 seconds. We'll let you know how much time is allocated to respond to each question. We have randomly selected who answers first, starting with a different candidate each time. We'll remind you of the order of answering when we read each question. Just before the break and before closing statements, we'll do a lightning round, which we'll explain when we get there. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Terry Kramer will be our timekeeper. When you see her green background, you can begin your answer. For all questions, the timekeeper background will turn yellow, indicating you have 15 seconds left on the clock. You will see a red background when your time is up. At that time, please finish your sentence and pass the mic, so to speak. We thank you in advance for making the job of our timekeeper easy by adhering to the time allotment. Please do not make us mute you. Also, we have put the question in the chat for everyone to refer to. So now we'll start our conversation with the candidates.
We will begin with opening statements. Each candidate will introduce themselves and give an opening statement. Charles will start, followed by Ali, Catherine, Jeff, Trudy, then John. You each have 1 minute for your opening statement. Charles, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Thank you. Wonderful introduction, and thank you, everybody, for hosting the event. My name is Charles Bryan. I live in the Palisades neighborhood with my wife and our 2 young children. I am a senior manager at Twitch Interactive, where I work on video infrastructure. I'm running on putting Lake Oswego on a path of more sustainable development. I want to take on updating our building codes, merging our tree codes to make sure that we're protecting our trees and our watershed as we grow the city and welcome more residents in. I'm very focused on how can we make the city more livable? How can we improve our residents' quality of life? How can we keep our aging residents in place and happy in the city as we grow? How can we take on traffic issues, prevent cut through? And that's the end. Thank you.
would you like me to go next, or should I wait for your instruction?
You can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ali Afghan. I have lived in city of Lake Oswego since 1990, 5 different neighborhoods, and I am vested in Lake Oswego's having a good reputation. I have had nothing but great experience in Lake Oswego, a place that's safe, it's green, it's clean, and most often people ask me why I'm running. I'm running because I care. I care because I want to make sure that the future generation and younger families have the opportunities to live in this town. My values are safety, sustainability, and equity. I have been endorsed by previous mayors, current mayors, city councilors, former, current, many community leaders, Chamber of Commerce, and it's not because we agree on the solutions or the topics, it's because they agree with the way I think and how I make decisions. Thank you
for your response.
Hi, my name is Catherine Lupton. Thank you so much for having me this evening. I am a teacher, Spanish teacher. Most recently, I was teaching at Portland State University, but I also spent 4 years teaching high school Spanish. I'm an educator, a parent. I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. And I am a lifelong Oregonian. I grew up in Salem, Oregon, and attended public schools all throughout my childhood. I'm also the daughter of 2 public school teachers. So I'm very invested in the public school system and in living here in Lake Oswego. I'm so proud to be here and to be raising my family in this community. I am very interested in maintaining the successes of this beautiful city. And I also would like to grow the city in terms of its diversity and inclusion. And I think there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. But one way is by making the community more accessible through pathways and sidewalks for pedestrians and bikers. And also, I've run out of time. Thank you so much for having us this evening.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Goodman. Thank you to the LO Sustainability Network, to LO for Love, and Respond to Racism for organizing tonight's event. It benefits all of us and all the residents of our city. I'd like to speak to the organizations and what you have brought us together for and the background that I can bring, particularly when it comes back to diversity, equity, inclusion, because in that factor, it is inclusion which drives diversity, is inclusion which drives equity. To that end, when the city police department was looking to add on additional African-American officers, I arranged for a meeting with our previous police chief, with the Reverend Matt Hennessy of the Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church, primarily African-American church, to arrange for discussions about recruiting African-American officers to the Lake Oswego Police Force. I serve as the treasurer of Clackamas Volunteers in Medicine, primarily provide basic medical services to low income, primarily Latino in the Clackamas County. I bring the financial skills that I have to bear in that position. Thank you for this opportunity.
To our host tonight for the work you do. It's very important. Good evening to you all. My name is Trudy Corrigan. I've lived in Lake Oswego for 30 years. I raised my family here, and I've been a long-time volunteer in our schools, in my neighborhood, in the city, and in the greater Portland area. I believe that we all need to hear everyone's voice in order to have a just and healthy society. And I think we all need to feel free to speak up for things that matter to us. And for me, that means that people in our community feel connected and that the environment that supports us is healthy for us and our children who will follow us. That's why I'm running for Lake Oswego City Council. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Wendland. I'm sitting on City Council now, and I'm running for re-election. I've lived in Lake Oswego for the past 20 years. Before that, I grew up here long ago, went through the schools here, graduated from Lake Oswego High School, and went down to California for a little while to be in business and start my career. I came back to Lake Oswego for a lot of reasons. One, to raise my kids, which they all went through the Lake Oswego School District. And we have a great city that we live in, and I'm very proud to be part of it. I've served the last 4 years on City Council, and I think we've been doing some wonderful things, in part with the 3 groups that are represented tonight who are doing wonderful things for the city. And that's one of the things about the community that I love. People participate, it's a community feeling, and we get a lot of things done. And I'm here to have some fun with you guys tonight, and hopefully you'll learn lots about all of us and where we stand. Thanks.
Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Now we'll begin our questions. For this first question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Jeff, then Charles, John, Ali, Catherine, and Trudy. The question is, what should the role of the city be to ensure housing in our community for the people that teach our children, care for our pets, disabled in yards, clean our homes, service our restaurants so that they can live where they work? Jeff, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Thank you for the question. That's a very challenging question for the city of Lake Oswego, because property values in our city are very high compared to most of the rest of the metro area. That's something that we as a city are not going to be able to adjust. It's a question of many people wanting to live here. There's also the issue, people working in our city government. We've had examples of past city managers, some of who chose to live in our city because they wanted to keep their fingers on the pulse of what was going on. Other previous city managers chose to live outside the city because they wanted to get a break. We can explore the potential for offering potentially subsidies to people who work for the city to live within the city. That can be an expensive proposition. It means either we'd have to decline offering other services we have, or to go to the residents and ask for more money. That's a discussion I'm willing to have. It can be beneficial. It does provide benefits, but there's also a cost to it. When we speak about all the other members of the community who are not involved in city government, as I've wandered through the city, not only through my 40+ years of living here, but through the last several months, as I've gone walking around the city, talking with the residents, talking with the people, you will find that there is a lot more moderate housing available than what people generally think of the city. Yes, there are some very expensive homes throughout our city, but there's a great deal of moderate housing, and the city has a role of promoting that going forward to let people know, yes, there's a place for you in our city.
Thank you for your answer.
I think this is a core issue for Lake Oswego. It's getting harder and harder for our public service members to live in the city. And I've noticed that even over the last 4 years, I've been watching the housing market. We used to have entry-level housing that a teacher could afford. And just in the last 4 years, I think an entry-level house here in the city now is $650,000 up. It's pretty unaffordable for somebody on a teacher's salary. So I think it is something that the city really needs to do more about. The development we've taken on so far is mostly focused on larger single-family homes that has provided a benefit to the residents, increased housing values in the city, but really hasn't addressed the housing shortage. So I would like to take this on by changing our building codes. We want the tree code updated and integrated into the building code so that as we do more development, we don't lose everything that makes Lake Oswego great. We don't lose our urban forest, our tree line. But I think the city really needs to reevaluate zoning. We need to give builders a lot more flexibility to take on multi-family housing projects and to really put a dent into creating an entry-level housing market again for the city. Thank you.
And
are you next? Go ahead. I think I'm number 3 on this one. We do have an issue with affordable housing. It's not just in Lake Oswego, it's a metro area problem. Housing prices have continued to go up. Urban growth boundary is part of that. Development code is part of that. Restrictions is part of that. It's very costly to build new housing in Oregon. But the city council in the last few years has worked on 3 major projects and has been very supportive. One of the things we've done is worked with 2 projects on Boone's Ferry, which will help middle housing, one with Habitat for Humanity and one with Metro. Merrillhurst, we helped reorganize and give an allowance for housing, housing project at Merrillhurst University. The sisters graciously came up with money and to build middle income housing there. We've also done something that I think we should do more of when builders build like the North Anchor project apartments. We offer like 10% of the units to be subsidized for middle housing by offsetting their development fees. So Lake Oswego has been working on it, but we need to do more projects like this. The problem is we just don't have a lot of land to do it with. So we need to work with private developers to develop more housing. And more importantly, we need to get our development code simplified.
I remember 32 years ago, I was a mechanical engineer with a mechanical engineering income. We could not afford living in Lake Oswego. So our decision was, let's go build a house in Lake Oswego. So with all the resources we could borrow, begs and put together, and still we built a house so we could live in Lake Oswego. Fast forward to 3 years ago, my daughter, who was born in Lake Oswego, wanted to live in Lake Oswego, but with her nursing job at OHSU, which pays very well, she couldn't afford living in Lake Oswego. So this problem has existed for quite some time. The city council has done a great job creating those opportunities where developers come in and also provide housing. We need to do a lot more of that. How? We have to bring the community leaders together, community developers, the city leaders, and figure this out. And perhaps with incentives, perhaps with changing zones, codes, anything we can do in order to bring diversity, not only diversity, but also the people who serve our community to live in this community. How can we expect police do community policing when they do not live in this community? How can we expect teachers understand our community challenges with our kids when they don't live in this community? So to answer your question, what should the role of the city be? It's direct and engage and push as hard as we can.
Well, my fellow council candidates have brought up some really good points. What I would like to add to that is I'm of course in support of affordable and low-income housing for Lake Oswego. We do have an affordable housing unit that's going up near my home on Lower Boone's Ferry. And there's also one that there's an area that is they're talking about developing, that's the staging area on Lower Boone's. And I think that would actually be more, hopefully closer to low-income housing. So as it is now, as a public school teacher, I would not be able to afford living in Lake Oswego. The only reason we can afford to be here is because my husband is a doctor at OHSU. He works in the emergency department. So I'm very fortunate to be able to afford a home here. But many of my friends who are around my age, early 30s, who are trying to start families and move to Lake Oswego aren't able to do so. And I really do think it's a shame that, for example, like The other council candidates were saying that, for example, a police officer couldn't afford to buy a home in Lake Oswego. And of course, for me, it hits hard that the public school teachers who serve our students are not able to afford to live here either. I think it's really important that we work to provide not only affordable housing for people who are police officers or public school teachers, but also low-income housing for people who are making less money, so that we can all share this space together and be more inclusive.
I think that we are very challenged, and you can hear it in everybody else's comments. So I think that tells us that we need to be very, very creative as we look for opportunities. We need to continue to look for opportunities. And then when we do have opportunities like we have right now with the Metro project in the staging area for the Boones Ferry Road improvements, we need to do it really, really well. And it can be a catalyst for other projects if we can show we can do it well. In fact, I listened in on the neighborhood meeting that was just a few days ago, and I commend the city for the questions that they asked and the diversity of ideas and voices that we heard. So I have a lot of confidence that that will be done well, and maybe that will be a springboard for us. The other ideas that I have to add are, can we encourage people to build ADUs? They can work really well for aging families. I know there are a lot of them in the city of Portland, and they can be built in a very sustainable green fashion. I think we also need to encourage and incentivize our builders to build where we have units that are already zoned, they're ready to go, we have the space, and that would be on the third floor of all our transportation corridors like Boones Ferry and downtown. We can have absolutely fantastic European style housing there that is that's beautiful. And then the last thing is, the greenest house is the one that's still standing. Can we help save our old houses, save the best that we have, and carry that forward into the future?
Thank you all for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Catherine, then Trudy, Charles, Jeff, John, and Ali. The question is, what are some of the ways to break down barriers so we hear from underrepresented groups such as BIPOC, parents of young children, LGBTQIA+, low-income citizens, and disabled citizens in our community, and increase participation in city government, including city council meetings and on boards and commissions? Catherine, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a really important one. I believe that as a city council, we can be more inclusive in the way that we're listening to the community and responding to the needs of the community. I do think there's a lot of boards that are already in place that are doing an important job, but I also see that attending city council meetings and other board meetings to testify can sometimes be intimidating. I know it was for me the first time that I testified at a meeting. So I think that we can be more inclusive at these meetings and make sure everyone knows that they're welcome to come and speak to the city council at any of the city council meetings, and make sure we're publicizing when those events are, or when the city council meetings are. I also have been attending events like the neighborhood chairs meeting and various neighborhood meetings around the city, where I've been able to listen in on the heartbeat of the community in a very concise way, which has been helpful for making sure I understand all of the different issues going on in each segment of our city. I also think it's really important that as a city council, we work in connection with the school board, and that we're working in lockstep with the school board and communicating as much as possible. And as a public school teacher, I'm very interested in doing that and making sure that we are listening to teachers and students through the public schools as well, so that we can really respond inclusively to any issues that may arise. Thank you.
Hi. Well, I think if you want input, you got to reach out, you got to seek it. So that could take the form of Hello Hello or other mailings from the city. But I think it would be a really kind of a neat thing if we could figure out for the city to have open houses for committees, for the city council, where people can just come in and sit down and talk to you about what you do, how they might be able to become involved. You know, I have to think a little bit more about that. But I think one of the things that's happened to us, I'm afraid to say, is I think COVID has hurt us very badly in terms of our civic engagement. I know my neighborhood association is way down. We had 4 people at our general meeting. In the past, we might have had 20 or 25. So I would look for a way to try to re-engage people, talking to people. And I also support Catherine's idea about educating kids in school about getting involved and speaking up in what happens in our city government. So those are the approaches I would take. Thank you.
I would say that we, even as a group of candidates here, we don't see a whole lot of diversity. So it is a challenge for the city, and at every level of the city too, whether it's workers or city leadership. We definitely need to do more outreach in order to get engagement from every group that we're looking for. I think we can do things like, even at city council meetings, can we set aside enough time specifically for our underrepresented groups to come and speak and bring their own agenda, really. Let them have a bigger voice in the community and to tell us what they're thinking about. The second part of this question's about boards and commissions. We do have the DEI board, the Sustainability Advisory board, but I think that we've created a lot of these boards and commissions, but a lot of times they operate somewhat in isolation. I think we can do more to try and mix the responsibilities and increase communication between our groups, and really just have the city overall communicating and getting a lot more feedback from the residents.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good one. The current council has done an excellent effort in trying to expand the opportunities for people to participate in city government, to expand the opportunities for people to be on different boards and commissions, and to participate during city council meetings. Let me talk to some of the specific examples where I've been able to make a contribution. When we were rebuilding our operations and maintenance center, and then rebuilding our city hall and police station, I went to the 2 project managers and said, every public bathroom needs to be single stall, gender neutral, disability friendly. And it happened. Those are the kinds of specific actions which make people feel included when you want to go to one of those buildings. And that's also going to be the case with the new Tryon Creek wastewater plant, although the public doesn't probably go down there very often. Other items of inclusion take specific actions on the part of council members. For example, attending the Respond to Racism meetings, which occur on a monthly basis, had been in person, but on Zooming, something which I have done almost from the start. Same thing with the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network. When there's an event going on, do your best to go. And we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should use them when we're reaching out in that same proportion. Listen and learn, take actions, reach out to people, and help move things forward to make things even better.
Well, I have to applaud Lake Oswego for and the city council and the boards and commissions and many of the groups actually that are sponsoring tonight for bringing this conversation and making sure that the conversation is alive and it's happening. I think we need to have a welcoming community in Lake Oswego. People need to feel like they're welcome here. And that we found is going to take a lot of work. But I think we've done some steps since I've been on council. One, we did put together a DEI task force, which now is a DEI advisory board. They have not reported yet to council, and I'm excited to have them report with their ideas. I think we need to listen and have that conversation. Again, keep the conversation going. We also have I think, an opportunity with Zoom meetings. I mean, there's 106 participants in tonight's meeting. A lot of people can't get to council meetings in person. A lot of people don't really need to go to council meetings in person. I think having meetings on Zoom, having a community conversation, that's important. We've hired a equity program manager. We have a ADA, an American Disabilities Act coordinator that are looking at these things. So we've staffed up in the last couple of years. And I think that's also in tandem with new and better improved hiring policies to bring people of color and people that want to be working for Lake Oswego. I think if we look more like the people that are around us, people will come. And I have the red zone, sorry.
We have come a long ways from early 90s when I returned to Lake Oswego to have a home here. The city has done a good job in recent years to bring us forward, but we have a long ways to go. In specific to your question, what are some of the ways to break down barriers? It's similar to anything else that we have to break down barriers. We have to do trainings, whether it's the kids or the grown-ups or the city employees or the police, or we have to bring it out and do trainings. And as a city, we have to do more of these cultural events that we just had one of them. We have to do more of them and perhaps more focus and not put all of them under one umbrella. We do have to get surveys. We have to find out how the residents actually feel so we can put an action plan in place. We have to have the BIPOCs and LGBTQIA groups, just like what we have here tonight, in order to keep the topics fresh and front and center. But last but not least, we have to hire diverse employees into our cities, into our schools, into our businesses, local businesses, so our mesh and fabric changes to a diverse community.
Thank you for your answers. So for our next question, each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer. We'll start with Charles, then Jeff, John, Ali, Catherine, and Trudy. The question is, given Lake Oswego's exclusionary history, what is your concrete plan to make Lake Oswego a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable community? Give 3 examples of action you would take. Charles, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
I think this is definitely a challenge for Lake Oswego and something we really need to work on at all levels. I think Ali really touched on it, where we really need to make sure that inclusion is a professional competency for everybody who works at the city, something that gets talked about in schools by teachers, by students, and something that we as a community are talking about, whether it's city-led forums to have discussions about inclusion, to help train just community members who may not have a job that's in this path of inclusionary training. I think that we need to make sure that we're holding forums and making sure that the community has a voice in this, and that we're really teaching people who wouldn't know otherwise how to be inclusive, how to confront racism, etc. Thanks.
This is another good question. Thank you for giving it to all of us. Item number 1 is an item I've already referenced. Make sure that all public buildings, the public bathrooms, are gender neutral, single stall, disability friendly. That invites inclusivity. Number 2, every resident of city receives HelloLO. We can list in that all the different meetings which are going on, not only just the neighborhood meetings, which have not been listed recently, but the Sustainability Network, the Respond to Racism. So every resident knows when these meetings are occurring so that they can go to and participate if they so choose. And number 3, as a city councilor, make an effort to, as often as possible, attend these meetings to let people know that as a city councilor, you are here to represent all the groups and to listen to all groups.
I keep following Jeff. Three action points that I would do, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. One is keep meeting the DEI advisory group, school district, city staff, boards and commissions. We need to get it involved into the DNA of the people that are working here. Secondly, hiring policies. I think if you look at our police and fire, the last 2 or 3 entry groups that have come in, that have been hired, far more diverse. We're beginning to start to look, hopefully, what our community will look like. And then third, and it's been talked about by the other candidates, and I agree 100%, we need training. It's an educational process that we have to continue to have the conversation. We have to continue to have training with all different groups of people and have a community conversation. And that's, I think, comes from the top, city council and city management, down to everyone in the city, and certainly our boards and commissions, and most importantly, our community members.
To make Lake Oswego to be a diverse community, as you asked the question, 3 concrete things. I think a whole lot of discussion we've had right now is happening, but we have to push certain things. My 3 things are: diversity hiring will be number 1 on my list as the city councilor. That means we're going to seek diverse candidates and hire them. Affordable housing. Until we have a community where all incomes and all diversity groups can live within the city, I don't think we're going to be an inclusive city. So that was number 2. And number 3, I will want to work with Chamber of Commerce to attract minority-owned businesses. So we start a multi-pronged strategy from different directions. Those are my 3 items.
All right. This is my daughter, Amelia. I want to introduce her to you all. She's been door knocking with me and helped me gather signatures. And she's been to quite a few city council different meetings at the city hall. So I wanted to introduce her to everyone. So I think it's really a difficult thing for us to say that we're welcoming and inclusive when we still are stating that the lake is private. And as a city that we are taking that stance on. I just don't understand how we can be inclusive until that very basic need is done. And then we open up, make sure the lake is public for everyone who lives in Lake Oswego and pays, especially the people who are here paying taxes. After that, of course, affordable housing and low-income housing, as we have spoken about before, is a really important point. And then, as my fellow candidates also said, attending community meetings is really important. And I also would say that it would be nice if we had a board or a commission that was fully made up of high school students so that they could give direct input to the city.
Hi, I think that we really have to get on the trainings. Our words influence our thoughts. And there's a wonderful model out there for teaching cultural competency. It's based on awareness, knowledge, and skills. They teach things like microaggressions that most of us aren't even aware of, the ways that other people can feel marginalized just through the small things that we do. We all need to bring that to awareness. The second thing, I think Ali's already alluded to it, which is we do not want lack of acquaintance with other cultures to get in our way. And I think we need to constantly bring in the things that we understand about other cultures, about LGBTQIA, and just constantly make those part of our vernacular. And last, we need to do audits. We need to check back with people. We need to find out how we're doing. We need to make sure that our impact matches our intention, and keep checking and keep working it through the system. Thank you.
Okay, it's time for our lightning round. The way this will work is we'll read a question and you will all respond by holding up a sign indicating if your reply is yes or no. There's no verbal response during the lightning round. Question 1. Will you support continued use of Zoom for city meetings so the community can participate without traveling to City Hall? Yes or no? Thank you. Question 2. Will you support continuing to fund the city's DEI positions at the current level? Yes or no? Thank you. Question 3. Will you prioritize development of safe pathways for those who cannot drive to access essential services? Yes or no? Thank you. Question 4. Have you participated in a Lake Oswego Sustainability Network repair fair? Yes or no? Thank you. Question 5. Will you support an accelerated implementation of the city's climate action plan? Yes or no? Thank you. Thank you, candidates. We will now take a 5-minute break, and I want to remind the audience that this is a 2-hour program and that we will finish at 8:30 p.m.
Welcome back. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Ali, then Catherine, John, Charles, Jeff, and Trudy. The question is, what are some of the most impactful changes related to making Lake Oswego a welcoming city for traditionally marginalized groups that you have seen in the past 5 years? Ali, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
I think we have talked about this several times. I don't believe that there are problems and solutions to one specific thing without impacting other things. We have talked about changing the fabric of our community by having diverse group of people. It goes back to affordable housing. It goes back to bringing diverse group of people to our city. So I don't have anything else to add to that, because that's the fundamental change that we have to drive in order to have a more livable, more welcoming community. Thank you.
So the question is asking, what are the changes that we have seen take place in the last 5 years? I think that's an important question, and I'm thinking about it. I will go back to what I said about the lake earlier, that I haven't seen that change happen, that we've made the lake more accessible for our residents. And And so that's a big one that I haven't seen happen. Things that I have observed are just the conversations, the community conversations about affordable housing and how that has been brought to the forefront of public attention. And there have been surveys that have gone out and meetings and questions for input that the public could attend. And I think that goes a long way towards making people feel welcome and that they are able to have a voice when it comes to affordable housing and being more inclusive in our city. And of course, there's the DEI board that has been formed. And of course, changes like that are really important. And I think in that way, we are going in the right direction. I think we still have a really long way to go in terms of making our city an inclusive place for all groups, especially marginalized groups. So I would say that I just want to end by saying we have a long way to go. Thank you.
Well, it's a pretty complex topic. I think one of the things that we have done the last 5 or 10 years, like Oswego, I was on the school board for 8 years, and a number of the topics that we're talking about tonight were prevalent then, and they're prevalent now. And as a school board member, we were working towards change, to have more of an open dialogue and to have a more welcoming community. I think, you know, you look at Willie Poinsett, who has started us off tonight. She was an agitator, and a positive agitator, to have the conversation of bringing up a subject that a lot of people didn't want to talk about. And I thought that was fabulous. And it took a bold step for her and a number of her friends to have a dialogue and have a conversation. I think in the last 5 years, we have changed our hiring practices. We have a far more diverse city workforce than we did even 5 years ago. We have 2 counselors of color. My colleagues, Daniel Wen and Sen Mabuk, are on city council. That's fabulous. They bring points of view. It shows people that we have people that represent who they look like, and there's a voice at the table. So I think we're doing a lot of different things, and I'm excited about what the DEI advisory board is going to do, and in conjunction with what we're doing in the school district to bring those 2 groups together, and the school board and the city council to keep the conversation going and moving forward.
The light is gone for me, by the way. So you're like off the end of the rotation, so I can't see it. Yeah, I think the city's made a lot of improvements over the last several years. Having a DEI professional in the city, expanding policies, doing a better job of hiring, refreshing buildings, even City Hall is much improved, much more accessible, improving facilities at our recreation areas has been a big positive. And I think the city can really go further, trying to get more representation in leadership roles, doing things like continuing sidewalk expansion and really making sure that the city is connected in an accessible way for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. The impactful changes related to making Lake Oswego a welcoming city for traditionally marginalized groups that I've seen in the past 5 years. I'll offer 3 examples. Example number 1, it was the initial hiring of Don Johnson, who initially came in as our police chief and then subsequently went over to head the fire department. And then Dale Jorgensen coming in as police chief, and the substantial efforts that they have made in particular to diversify our workforce while maintaining the high quality of people that we want to have working for our city. And that is an attitude that is throughout the entire city departments for the hiring of people. Number 2 was the acknowledgement of a variety of now national holidays, which Oregon and Lake Oswego followed suit, with the one example being the celebration of Juneteenth and the city-sponsored event that went with that for the last couple of years. And then number 3 are the different festivals that the city has been sponsoring and supporting at Millennium Plaza, representing the very many groups from all parts of our community and indeed all parts of our country. So those would be 3 specifics of the impactful changes related to making Lake Oswego a more welcoming city for traditionally marginalized groups.
Sorry, Miss Trudy, you're muted right now.
Okay, here we go. I'm sorry for that. So I appreciate all the comments that everyone else has made, and I'm really very heartened by those. I think the DEI board, I think Gillian, our DEI specialist, and we even have a behavioral specialist on our police force now to deal with the things that come out of that we can't even imagine. And I think we have made progress, but I think what we need to do is we need to continue to step up on that progress in a steady way. And the place we want to get to is where we have a flywheel, where we have an internal momentum with these changes that we've made that will continue to accelerate our progress, bringing us into an inclusive, in an inclusive place. I think we really can't sit on our laurels. And I think that the progress we made should be celebrated, and we should look forward for more. Thank you. Sorry for my technical insufficiency.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with John, then Catherine, Trudy, Ali, Charles, and Jeff. The question is, along with the rest of the country, Lake Oswego has taken steps to re-examine the role of police officers and law enforcement in our community. What do you believe this role is in our community, and what, if any, changes would you advocate for? John, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Well, we did a full review of the police department in the last couple of years, and it was very positive process. It was a very engaged process. And what we found is that Lake Oswego was already doing community policing, which is what everyone was asking for on a national basis. We've been doing it for the last 7 or 8, 9 years. So we're way ahead of the curve. Do we have opportunities for improvement? Absolutely. I mentioned before, the police chief started a recruiting program, and I was at the last couple times where we swore in officers, and we have a very good group that's coming in that is many of them of color. Many of them are new to Lake Oswego, but they have the right attitude. And one of the things that community policing is all about is customer service for our citizens. And I think one of the things that I would advocate now is more communication, more transparency on statistics, like the traffic stop reports, having those happen real time that you could punch up on a website, find information, different things that are happening. So I think we need a communication piece to bring what the police department is doing for Lake Oswego and how they're communicating and interacting with our citizens.
I think this is a really important question. I feel very safe in Lake Oswego, and I think obviously there's a lot of reasons for that. One of the reasons is because we do have a phenomenal police force. I also understand that not everyone may feel that way. I I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Salem, in the North Salem part of town. Then I spent 2 years in Madrid, living in downtown Madrid. And then I spent 4 years teaching in the public schools in Baltimore City. I taught at Baltimore City, Baltimore City Public High School. I taught Spanish courses there. And I was there when Freddie Gray was killed. And I was listening as my students reacted to the news, and we had something that was called officially at the time a riot day, where tanks rolled into the city, and we had a day off of school, and then we were all back in school the next day after the uprising. And it was a very disquieting time. So I really I spent a lot of time listening to the conversation that was happening in Baltimore while I was living there. And so I have a really strong sense of the fact that many people don't feel safe around police officers. And I'm very lucky to be able to generally feel safe in Lake Oswego and when I'm being responded to by a police officer.
So yeah, our community policing is very effective both ways, because it helps solve problems, and it also helps our community understand who those people are who are performing our police duties. I think we need to make sure everything is always changing. So I think we need to make sure that they're proactively equipped to deal with evolving conditions. I think as social conditions change, but all the other things that are happening in our communities, we really want them to be out in front. They're really high quality people, and we need to make sure they have what they need. I think trust in our police really matters. And the way that trust happens is through transparency, it's communication, it's accountability, it's openness. So the process matters. I think we should consider having a regular review, aside from anything that does or does not happen with our police, every few years. I don't know if it would be 3 years or 5 years. So we can find places where we can continue to do better. And we can also communicate to the public and find out from the public what we're doing right. So I think that would be a good way to continue in a proactive, constructive way into the future.
We have a very good police department. We have a very safe city to live in. We don't need to go and change things drastically. Having said that, the continuous improvement is a show of wanting to be excellent. I think serve and protect is the mission of the police, but a whole lot of police departments have forgotten the serve part and they protect. We need to figure out what that serve means. By diversity hiring, training community policing, what does that mean and how are they supposed to do this? And deep understanding of proportional response. Our police department is already doing that, but I want to take them to the next level of performance. So when we say proportional response, not every situation requires force. Some situations, if not most of them, requires patience. And that's what I would want to bring more of into our LOPD. Serve and then protect.
Along with the other candidates, I agree that the Lake Oswego Police Department seems to be doing a very good job and is on a good path of improvement here. I think as far as what role they should play in our community, I think that the police should really be a part of the community to interact with residents more, to interact with the people who come to our city for work or leisure. the current police chief, I think, is doing coffee with a cop, which has been good outreach. I'd like to see that go further. Make sure that people's interactions with police are not just because you've been pulled over at a traffic stop or something. I think that makes a very adversarial relationship. I'd really like to see police both a part of the community and as Ali said, focused on serving. I think, you know, we're in Lake Oswego. We don't need a militarized police department that goes to use of force as the first option. I think we really need to make sure that our police department is focused on serving the community. And I agree with John. I've looked over the annual reports that the police department puts out, and I feel we can do a better job increasing communication and transparency and making sure that we're not hiding interactions in statistics, and make sure that we're fully disclosing the data of police interactions with people to make sure that we can build trust together with the police department.
Thank you for the question. As evidenced by the independent report submitted to the City Council, the Lake Oswego Police Department is operating in a non-discriminatory basis. The department set an example of what community-based policing should be. As one, if not the first people to advocate publicly for the addition of police officers, because we hadn't added police officers on for over 30 years while the size of our city had increased substantially, and the types of crimes the city police department was having to address had increased substantially. I was also a leader in the financing plan for the replacement of the old City Hall police station. I am and will remain a strong supporter of providing a safe community for all residents, not just a few residents, all residents of the city. We can always do better, and the police department strives to do so. But at this point, there are no major police reforms for Lake Oswego's police department that I would propose. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Catherine, then Ali, then Trudy, John, Jeff, and Charles. The question is, what ideas do you have to help with increased protection and enhancement of our urban forest, tree canopy, and natural resources? Catherine, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Well, I'm so glad I get to go first on this one. I have a lot to say. I am an environmentalist and a strong tree advocate, and I want our beautiful tree canopy, the Douglas firs that exist, 150-year-old, 200-year-old Douglas firs around our city to exist here when my kids are having kids. You know, I've got the future in my house right now, and I want them to be able to see those trees when they're older too. So to protect those trees, well, first of all, we need to establish green infrastructure throughout the city. And we also, and I have a certified backyard habitat, so I've been studying green infrastructure for quite a while now, and I understand what that means and what that looks like. So we need to increase that. But we also, of course, need to put, and this is something I wrote about in the LO review a few weeks ago, we need to have a concise tree code, and that tree code needs to be solidified and airproof, airtight, legally defensible, and then put into the development code. And so that whenever a developer comes along, or even a single homeowner comes along and is looking to cut down a beautiful 150-year-old Douglas fir tree that is benefiting our entire community, not just the people who live nearby it, everyone who gets to breathe the clean air and experience the beautiful bird ecosystem we have here. There's so many benefits to mature trees. And so if we codify, make sure the tree code is very solid and it's placed in the development code, and we can protect more trees.
The question is increased protection and enhancement of our urban forests, tree canopy, and natural resources. We do have the urban forest, but we have to put our money where our mouth is, meaning they require a lot of maintenance. We cannot ignore them and lose trees there. So we have to look at what does it take in order to keep with the maintenance of our urban forests and execute on that, because we all care about our urban forests. Tree canopies. It's a fact that every tree has a life expectancy of X. If we keep focused on the existing canopy, we may win the battle, but we will lose the war. Meaning we have to figure out, because these trees are gonna die, how do we keep our canopy moving forward? How do we keep, Catherine, it is a fact. How do we, all trees die. And if you want, you can come to the Old Town neighborhood and see what a 100-year-old tree is doing right now because it's dying. It almost killed our neighbors. But we have to figure out, how do we transform our tree canopy? Because the tree canopies will change, but how do we keep it moving forward? And last but not least, our natural resources also include water and air, and we have to pay attention to those. Thank you.
So our urban forest is a huge buffer for us against climate change. And it's like a very, very valuable investment account that we need not to squander. So we need to continue to study it. We do have LIDAR studies from 2014 and 2019. They aren't as helpful as they could be because they're just at the 10-foot level. We're in the process now of moving them up to the 20-foot level, which will not include things like laurel hedges. The study did show that we have lost some of our larger trees between 2014 and 2019. And we do know, we can see living here on ground level that we are losing some of our large trees to development. I think we have to get out in front of that because we have to accommodate development. We're required to do that by state and county mandates. So I believe we need to get back into our tree codes now and look at the type 2 tree permits to make sure that they are consistent with clear and objective requirements, so that we know that they are legally defensible. And we need to look at our development code. There are a lot of documents around the city that show this discussion started maybe 4 years ago. I think we've finally gotten to the point where we know we need to take a hard look at it. We also need to realize when we cut a tree, we need to plant a tree. And Ollie's right. We do lose a lot of trees in our city due to lack of care. We need to turn our attention to that as well. Thank you.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I think the city is doing a good job, and the community is doing a good job. Our tree canopy, the study that we just reviewed, we have grown our tree canopy significantly. We're the #1 tree canopy city in the state, behind Durham, which is a small city, but of major cities, we have the biggest tree canopy of anyone. But that doesn't mean that we can't continue to watch it and to make sure that we take care of it. And I think one of the things that I would look for is to really design a better way of tree replacement. If a tree is taken down, we really need a systematic way of making sure that a tree planted, make sure that it has a chance to survive and grow. And I would say that there's some mitigation strategies that the city could help with. One of the things that we do really well is we have a forest management plan, and we're working on it actually now. And we're looking at the urban forest. And our Parks and Rec department spends a lot of money every year making sure that 600+ acres of parks are taken care of, and it is adding to the tree canopy. And then education in schools and education with our community. Those are two key areas. You get people educated well enough and they know what needs to happen, they'll start advocating for it. And I go into stories about what we've done, but I have the red light, sorry.
This is another good question. Ideas to help with increased protection and enhancement of our urban forest, tree canopy, and natural resources. Number one, we need to continue on a regular basis every 4 or 5 years, or whatever the time period is decided on, of getting an examination of what is our tree canopy. And there was a recent excellent report that was presented at the Planning Commission about the status of that report, which was subsequently becoming the City Council. But one of the points that was brought up in that report, and also in tonight's discussion, was the composition has changed. Some of the long time older trees, the percentage of the total overall forest has gone down. We need to be cognizant of that and do what we can, at least in item number 2, which is revisiting the development code. And I think all 6 of us are united in wanting to have a revisit of the development code by next year's council. Number 3, on the education topic, the tree summit, which has been put on for the last several years, people to attend, do what we can to get more people to attend that. Number 4, we need to make sure that we are always trying to plant more trees than trees that are cut down. It means over time, we're going to be better off planting more trees than what we are cut down, both in public and private. Does that have an impact on the climate? Yes, it does. And cutting down an older tree and planting it with a new tree, there's an imbalance there in the first few years. But if we maintain the goal of wanting to be planting more trees than what are cut down, over time, we're going to do better. Lastly, the purchase of land in the Stafford Triangle, replanting them as an oak savanna or a Douglas fir forest.
Terry, are you gonna turn green? Cool. I think one of the major things we see in Lake Oswego is that the development that's going on today really doesn't match the spirit of Lake Oswego. You know, the residents are witnessing lot after lot, sometimes an empty lot with forest, sometimes a small home was bought and is getting demolished to rebuild a new, larger single family home. And we see the building code trumps the tree code right now. A developer can just create a floor plan that is the size, the buildable size of the lot, take up all the space, clear cut trees, and really, as a community, we lose our forest from that. So I'm proposing that we merge the tree code and the building code to put them on equal level and to make sure that we have things like ecological setbacks for trees, where a policy like 50% of the trees on a property have a setback. I think it would be like 7 feet to make sure that the tree can have a healthy root system. The other thing is we have an archaic zoning codes throughout the city that really need to be relaxed to give developers a lot more flexibility. Right now it's build the biggest building in the middle of the lot, and we really need to allow developers to choose areas around the lot where they can avoid trees, where they can build multifamily housing to really take care of our forests.
Thank you for your answers. For our next question, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We'll start with Trudy, then Ali, John, Charles, Jeff, and Catherine. The question is, how do we increase the use of clean, renewable energy in new and existing buildings in Lake Oswego? Trudy, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
The use of new renewable energy in buildings in Lake Oswego is an incredibly exciting idea. I think the first things that occur to me are solar. We do have the opportunity for community solar here. I don't think we've even examined it, and that would be things like putting solar panels on top of our municipal buildings, our schools. And the thing then that has to happen with that is we have to become attuned to what's available out there with battery systems. The thing that I really like about that is it makes us more independent of the grid should we have a civil or an environmental emergency, and we have a pretty robust solar system with battery backup. We will be much, much safer. We'll also save money. If we can, it'll cost us something up front and we'll have to learn about it. But this is one of those things that I'm really excited about. If we do it and we do it well, it'll be a catalyst. It'll have a flywheel effect. The other possibility that we can have, if we're willing to use community solar to study it, other communities have done it. So we can also put our homes on a grid. People who couldn't have solar on their house, they can participate in community solar on the roof of a nearby community building. Thanks very much.
In addition to what Trudy said, we have many buildings, existing buildings that are fueled by natural gas. And as we now know, natural gas is another pollution that we need to stop. So I think with incentive programs, we need to start looking at the existing infrastructures and see how we can convert those to renewable energy, especially electrifying. On the new buildings, I think we need to look at our zoning codes and also what are the things we can limit in usage in Lake Oswego. I don't know what is our authority as a city, but if we can start eliminating natural gas from our homes, like fireplaces, furnaces, and our infrastructures, like any new office building that goes up, is not allowed to have a natural gas boiler for their heating system. So there are things that we can do. We have to come together as a community and decide what is it that will have the most impact for our decisions. Thank you.
Well, I think we all talked about solar because we can't put windmills up in Lake Oswego. So I think one of the things that we look at renewable energy, I would invite everyone to take a look at Lake Ridge Middle School or City Hall. Those are two big projects that have just occurred, and they've integrated energy savings, renewable. We have solar panels at City Hall. It offsets some. It doesn't offset all of our needs, but it offsets some. Those are the types of things that I would say are models. But you look at the building that has been going on, and I think there has to be the balance of cost and investment so that you get a return. And I think we're getting closer and closer to having a better dialogue with developers where they're putting more and more efficient renewable energy type building materials and ideas. But, you know, part of it is we had a engineer who believes very much in solar. And he said, well, we're going to have to take down quite a bit of the tree canopy in order for Lake Oswego to be solar contributor. So these are the tugs that you go back and forth with. And I think having the conversation and figuring things out as a community is the best way to do it. And we can do that through policy. We can also do that through incentives.
I think I could talk on this topic for hours easily, really. The main thing I'll focus on is that it's not just about sourcing energy for a building. It's regarding, even at the city level, the city is a system. How can we reduce people's need to get in a car? I feel like every time I want to go somewhere in Lake Oswego, I have to get in the car and drive 10 to 15 minutes to get there. It's how can we make it so that people can walk, ride places. Building codes can be modernized. We're already at a point in time where You can make a new building, you can air seal it, have better insulation, and the building will use less energy. So people in forested environments don't even need to worry about solar panels, because you can improve a building to use 75% less energy, and then source it renewably very easily, and you don't even need a solar panel array for your house. So there's a lot we can do. Building codes, city design wise, as we take on projects, even like the rec areas, how do we make sure that people can walk there, people can hop on public transit? This year, even, we have TriMet reducing bus schedules. I would love for the city to run a small public bus system that just visits all the areas in a circle around the city, so that people can really get around using less energy as well.
Another good question of how do we increase the use of clean, renewable energy in new and existing buildings in Lake Oswego. It's been touched on a little bit. I'll also touch on it. There's always a question of trade-offs. Yes, there's going to be between the tree canopy and solar access. There's a trade-off between those two, and we have to work out what's going to be the best possible way. The recent federal tax act with the tax credits, they're going to be coming down, particularly with respect to heat pumps and other electrification options, also with respect to cars, although that's not going to be with new and existing buildings. We have an opportunity in the first edition. There is a home which is a net zero. That person, that owner, has been kind enough on several occasions to open up his home to the community on those education days, to have people come through and see exactly what they have done. The recent effort on the part of the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, where a number of speakers came in talking about the benefits of not only EVs, but also for heat pumps. And that's magnified again by the recent federal tax act. And there are also tax credits available at the state level. On the additional renewable energy for new and existing buildings, it's not related to new buildings, but the city has made an effort to replace and has replaced all of the street lights with LEDs. And even though some of those replacements would take decades to recover the cost, the city stepped forward and said, it all means all, and all of those lights were replaced. Education, tax credits, heat pumps, the opportunity is there to make ourselves a more clean, renewable energy city.
My fellow candidates have spoken and made some very important points. So something that I can add to that, what I was going to talk about a little bit was the ban on banning gas-powered blowers. And again, I know the question specifically is talking about new and existing buildings in Lake Oswego, but I think my fellow candidates have touched on that. So electrifying the city fleet of buses, and then electrifying gas power. So instead of using gas-powered mowers and gas-powered leaf blowers, which are horrendously loud and annoying to everyone who hears them anyway, we swap those out for electric versions of those. So electric lawnmowers and electric leaf blowers. And that would happen through a city exchange program where you could provide incentives to workers who are using, or homeowners who are using those devices that are really detrimental, extremely detrimental to the environment, even more than driving cars around. They could exchange those for, we could have discounted electric blowers available, discounted lawnmowers available as well, and provide those incentives. So instead of just saying, okay, we've completely banned all of the gas-powered blowers and leaving them without recourse, homeowners and people who work on yards alike, we can provide incentives and help them to electrify their tools.
Okay, it's time for a second lightning round. You know the drill. We will read a question and you will all respond by holding up a sign indicating if your reply is yes or no. There is no verbal response during this lightning round. Question 1. Will you regularly attend community, cultural, and sustainability events in Lake Oswego, such as MLK Day, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Celebration, Juneteenth, and the Sustainability Resource Fair? Yes or no? Question 2. Will you support the elimination of natural gas hookups for new housing construction? Yes or no? Question 3. Will you support the use of public funds for the development of electrical vehicle charging for the multifamily housing? Yes or no? Question 4. Will you support the city committing resources to establish low-income housing? Yes or no? Question 5. Do you support alternatives to traditional policing that serve the needs of our community experiencing mental health crisis? Yes or no? Thank you for your responses.
Thank you all for your answers. You might be happy to know that there are no more questions. It's time for your closing statement. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their closing statement. We'll start with John, then Jeff, Allie, Catherine, Trudy, and Charles. John, when your mic is unmuted and the timekeeper gives you the green background, you may begin.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to participate. You guys have done a fabulous job in organizing this candidate forum, and I appreciate it very much. I just want to let people know that I care a lot about the city. I own a business in Portland, a manufacturing company. I have time to serve. I served on the school board for 8 years. I'm invested in this community, grew up here, so it's part of my DNA. I'm just here to serve. And I think we have a city that is in great shape. We have a wonderful city. We have a beautiful, wonderful community that is made up of lots of wonderful people. And I just want to keep it going. And I want to do progress and I want to do it right. And I think I'm a collaborator. I bring people together. I'm known for helping to get to the meat of a subject and make decisions as a community and as a group so that we're all winning. And that's my leadership style. And I want to continue serving and be part of City Council and serve Lake Oswego. Thanks so much for having me tonight.
I think Jeff was frozen, so he'll probably come back in. So
Did you want me to go?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for asking the tough questions. I think that pudding is in the cake. When 3 of us are elected, you will see how we are going to push the ideas that we shared with you. I've lived in this town for 32 years. I care. I care about safety. I care about sustainability, and I care about equity. And I think, again, I ask you that you go on my website, look at who are all the people who have endorsed me from all different perspectives. My intent is to bring everyone to the table and make the right decisions for Lake Oswego that we can be all proud of. I have people like Stephanie Werner, who is a leader in the sustainability. She has endorsed me because she knows how I make decisions. She has endorsed me because she knows my values. I thank you for your time, and I hope I have earned your vote tonight. Thank you.
My apologies to the group and to everybody who was watching. My computer crashed at the perfectly inopportune time. We live in a distinctive community, a city of extraordinary beauty with access to local and regional opportunities to enjoy the great community that we are in. It's a unique city with a quality of life. We have done well as a city, but we need to be mindful that we can do better. We can't just we cannot stand on our laurels. We have to recognize that we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and provide opportunities for those who will come after us. I've had the pleasure of serving on the City Council before. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve again. I want to thank LO for Love, the Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, and Respond to Racism for providing this opportunity this evening for all of us to come together, and in particular, noting that we started out with over 100 people in participating on this. So this is clearly the largest gathering of people in this particular election cycle. Thank you for doing that. I look forward to the opportunity to serve. Be well and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much for having us here tonight, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to respond to the very intelligent and challenging questions that you posed. I really think they're important questions, and I'm really glad that we all had a chance to speak to our views. I'm a public school teacher. I've taught Spanish for many years. I lived in Madrid for 2 years. I taught in Baltimore for a while. I grew up in Salem. I went to North Salem High School. And now I've landed here. I love Lake Oswego, and I've always looked at it as a beautiful place for many reasons, for the high quality school district, for the tree canopy. And now that I'm here, I see that there's also a lot that we can do to make the city a better place. And I am so invested to do that. I want to do that for my children, my 3-year-old Amelia, who you saw earlier tonight, my 1-year-old James, who my husband is putting to bed at this exact moment. I'm fully invested in this community, and I'm ready to serve and to lead, and ready to provide a fresh voice for our community.
Thanks for having us tonight. So I believe that we and everything around us are interdependent, and how we do things really matters. Our process really matters, because it is never, ever a one and done. Everything is always changing. The process I support respectfully takes into account diverse views, and then allows individuals to openly dialogue and collaborate to find the best solution to the current problem. So I think that the work that we do in the areas of social and climate justice will be continuously evolving as we make progress and learn more. We need to rely on a strong process. And as your city councilor, I will always respect and honor that process to keep us moving forward. Love to have your vote on November 8th, but please vote. And thanks for having us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, LO for Love, Respond to Racism. It's been a great forum with great questions. I am the candidate here who's really focused on taking on the tough challenges we have as a city today for the residents. I'm very passionate about getting our building codes updated so that we're really taking our urban forest conservation seriously, so that everything the city does is with a focus on improving livability, getting our communities more connected together, getting out there and really just enjoying everything that the city has to offer. It's my family and I chose Lake Oswego as the best city where we want to raise our kids. And I'm really looking to get to work for you to make sure that as our kids grow up, Lake Oswego just gets better and better. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank you all for participating in tonight's forum. We're very grateful that you are willing to engage and be responsive on issues of diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability. As a community, we're so lucky to have such a strong group of candidates step forward to represent us. If audience members have questions for the candidates, we encourage you to reach out to them, and we have their contact information in the chat. Willie?
In some cases, A forum like this culminates with endorsements. Our organizations do not endorse political candidates. We, however, encourage you, the audience members, to write letters to the editor following tonight's forum so that the broader community can get a sense of for who you felt spoke well to the issues that are important to you.
Now we'd like to let you know about some upcoming events. LO for Love, along with our partners from the Lake Ridge Asian American and Pacific Islander Student Union, is hosting our city's first ever Diwali celebration at Lake Ridge High School this Sunday, October 23rd from 2 to 5 p.m. You can learn more about this event and others on our website, loforlove.org. We also hope you'll join the next Respond to Racism meeting that will be held November 7th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. on Zoom. Please register on their website, respondtoracism.org, to receive the meeting information. If you want to sign up for Lake Oswego Sustainability Network's newsletter to learn about their activities, please go to their website, LOSN.org. There you can also find information about the annual Tree Summit this Saturday, October 22nd, from 9 a.m. to noon. Thank you all for your time this evening, and please remember to submit your ballots by 8 p.m. on Election Day, November 7th. Good night.